Story 1. I'm James. I was 26 when I decided I needed a complete break from everything and everyone. It wasn't a breakdown or a midlife crisis, just hitting the mental mute button. I figured hiking part of the Appalachian Trail alone was the answer, not the whole thing, obviously. Just a manageable week-long loop starting near a tiny North Carolina town called Elk Ridge, somewhere outside Hot Springs, curling back toward Blinn Hollow. It sounded remote enough to avoid tourists, but close enough to bail if things got weird. I didn't make a big deal of it, told my boss I was taking time off, gave my sister a vague hey, going off-grid for a bit, and that was it. No Instagram posts, no GPS tracking links, no emotional goodbyes. The last thing I wanted was someone texting every other day asking if I'd found myself. I wasn't going out there for that. I wasn't trying to heal, I was just tired, brain buzzing. From fluorescent lights, tired. I wanted to hear my own thoughts again, or better yet, no thoughts at all. The first 3 days were exactly what I'd hoped for. Long, quiet stretches of trail surrounded by thick green. You start noticing weird stuff that deepen the woods, like how many shades of moss exist, or how tree bark feels when you lean your whole body against it. Everything gets sharper. I got that good tired feeling you only get after hiking all day. Legs aching but satisfyingly like they'd done something worthwhile. I ate terrible freeze-dried meals, slept under a tarp, filtered water from streams, saw deer once, even spotted a bear way off on a distant ridge. It didn't look my way, and I didn't go looking for trouble. I was cautious, overly cautious, honestly. Bear bag hung every night. Fire safety nailed it. Maps checked. Landmarks used. Emergency spots marked. I had backup plans for my backup plans. That structure was comforting alone out there, made me feel in control. Night 4 is when everything turned. I set up camp in a hollow north of Devil's Thread Gap, about 10 miles past my loop's halfway point. There was a dried-up creek bed nearby and a clearing with enough rocks for a natural windbreak. I remember thinking it was perfect. I boiled water, tore open powdered lasagna, still disgusting, sat on a half-rotted log flipping through a book on my phone. I'd just started relaxing when it hit me. The smell, instant, sharp, chemical, like a mix of blood and battery acid with a hint of rotten underneath. Not just bad, wrong. You know how your brain tugs at your instincts detecting danger before you logically process it? That's what this was. I thought maybe an animal died nearby, so I got up and did a slow sweep, looked under brush, climbed to check the slope above, checked near the tree line, nothing, no carcass, no buzzards, no scratch marks or tracks, not even disturbed leaves. It was just still, too still. I didn't waste time after that. Shoved the food down, double-checked my bear hang, zipped into the tent before sunset. Sometime after midnight, I heard the steps. Slow, even, one step at a time through dry leaves and twigs. Not frantic, not animal-like. I've heard raccoons, foxes, even deer crunching through woods. This wasn't that. This was deliberate. I sat up in my sleeping bag, completely still, not even breathing, just listening. The steps moved around the tent once, just once, a perfect circle. Then they stopped directly behind my head. No rustling, no flashlight, no voice, just silence. I didn't unzip, didn't even twitch. I held a knife under my sleeping bag, fingers cramped around the handle so hard my hand went numb. I waited. I think I stayed like that until the sky turned gray and birds started up again. In the morning, I checked the ground behind the tent. There were prints, not mine. The soles were almost completely smooth, like old-school leather shoes, and the toe pointed inward slightly, like the person's feet were turned in. That small detail messed with me. I don't know why, but it did. It felt off, like something was wrong with the way whoever it was moved. I packed up fast, didn't eat, didn't even stretch, just started walking and didn't stop until my legs screamed. I skipped my next planned site, ignored my brakes, only stopped long enough to slam water and keep moving. and the smell followed me. It came in waves, sometimes faint, sometimes stronger, like rust and rot and something else, something sweet, almost syrupy, like spoiled fruit. It didn't make sense. Nothing dead follows you for 10 miles. That night I found a spot high on a ridge. Trees were sparse. I could see out in all directions. I thought it might make me feel safer. It didn't. I didn't make a fire, didn't cook. I crawled into the tent and held that same knife like it was glued to my hand. Then, around 2 a.m. I woke up again. Slow, steady, human breathing was coming from just outside the tree line. Not moving, not panting, just watching. Then, the steps started again. Crunch, crunch, no circling this time. They came straight toward the tent. I saw the silhouette, a tall, lean shape, backlit by moonlight. It was holding something, a stick, no longer, more like a staff or maybe a pole. He stood just outside the tent and tapped it once. That's all, just one knock, like someone tapping a finger on a window. Then he turned and walked away. The smell clung to the tent long after he left. I didn't sleep after that, didn't even sit down. When the sun came up, I packed in 10 minutes and followed a shortcut I'd marked on my map. A maintenance road toward the highway. Late afternoon, barely able to move my legs, I stumbled across an old hunting shack, barely standing. 3 walls, half a roof, rotting wood. I ducked inside to catch my breath. That's when I saw the carvings. Dozens of names scratched into the wood above the doorway. Some initials, some full names. Every single one had a date. Some from the 80s, some newer. The most recent was from 3 days earlier. Underneath that name was a blank space. It wasn't even subtle, just an obvious empty spot like it was waiting for the next one. I sat there, knife still in hand, heart trying to punch through my ribs. Stayed the whole night in that shack, didn't sleep, just listened. Every time something cracked outside, I was sure it was him again, waiting for dark. But he never came back. As soon as it was light, I took off down the road. I walked until I saw a ranger truck. I probably looked like I'd crawled out of a cave. The ranger asked if I was okay. I told him I saw a bear and got turned around avoiding it. He didn't press. When I got home, I sold all my gear, maps, boots, even my water filter. Haven't hiked since. Story 2. I used to think I was pretty good in the woods. I wasn't some wilderness expert, but I camped, I hiked. I didn't freak out over every snapping twig. So when my cousin Ben invited me out to his family's place near Waverly, Virginia, for a week last August, I didn't think twice. They had a big log cabin way out past the edge of anything resembling civilization. No neighbors, no cell signal, no ambient light from town. Just endless trees behind it, like the forest started where their yard ended and kept going into forever. Ben and I grew up spending summers together. Even after college started, we kept the tradition. We were both 20 now, technically adults, but when we got together, it was still the same old dumb jokes. The same competitions over who could eat more gas station snacks or whose college was more soul-crushing. We were a few days into the visit when boredom hit. No Wi-Fi, no girls, only so much Mario Kart you can play before getting existential. That's when Ben brought up the fire tower. There's one way up past Ridgepoint Bluff, he said, just throwing it out there over grilled cheese lunch. It's like 3 miles in, super sketchy, but it's still standing. You can see the whole county from the top. I paused, bite halfway to my mouth. You've been up there? Once, sophomore year. We did a night hike. Whole thing freaked me out, not gonna lie. But also, kind of awesome. I raised an eyebrow. Night hike, through unmarked woods. Yeah, that sounds like a no from me. Ben shrugged. Come on man, we've done dumber stuff. I brought headlamps. It'll be fun. We can camp on the platform, make some food, do the whole wilderness bonding thing. I hesitated, but only for a second. He had a point. We had done dumber stuff. Plus, I didn't want to be the guy who backed out of something that sounded kind of epic. so we packed up around 8:30 that evening. Ben loaded the bare essentials: 2 cheap sleeping bags, a tiny camp stove, some instant ramen, a beat-up tent just in case. I threw in 2 flashlights, my lighter, a bottle of water, and the folding knife my uncle gave me for graduation. Just having that knife made me feel slightly better about walking into the unknown. We left just before 9. The sun was mostly down, but a sliver of light remained, enough to make out shapes. The trail, or what Ben claimed was a trail, started behind his backyard and immediately ducked into a tunnel of trees. It was narrow, uneven, the kind of path you only find because a few deer stomped it flat. Every few steps, I had to dodge branches or step over half-buried roots. One tripped me so bad I almost ate dirt 5 minutes in. Should have worn shin guards, I muttered. Ben just laughed and kept walking. Welcome to nature's gym. After the first 15 minutes, we barely spoke. The woods were unnerving. I hadn't realized how used to noise I was until I noticed the lack of it. No crickets, no frogs, not even the hum of mosquitoes. Just our footsteps and the occasional swish of leaves when we brushed past something. It felt like we were underwater. Everything muffled. Then we passed a rusted old truck tilted sideways against a tree like it had been dropped by a crane. Windows shattered, moss growing over the hood, vines crawling through the busted grill. Ben nodded at it. That's been there forever. Some logging truck, I think, lost a wheel. Nobody ever hauled it out. We joked that it looked like the beginning of every horror movie. The kind where the camera zooms in on a weird object and you just know someone's about to die. About half an hour later, we found something hanging from a tree branch at first. I thought it was a decoration, like tinkin wind chimes, but when we got close, I realized it was bones. Small ones, probably from birds or rodents, strung together with bits of old twine, a few dirty feathers tied in. Smudged red paint on the bigger pieces. I stared, not getting closer. What the hell is this? Ben squinted. Locals leave stuff like this, supposed to be protection symbols. Some kind of folk ritual. My dad told me about it once. Appalachian witchcraft stuff. I didn't like how it spun. There was no wind, but it slowly rotated, like something unseen was nudging it, watching us, or pointing. We kept going, and the further in we got, the more it felt like we'd crossed into some place we weren't supposed to be. By the time we spotted the fire tower, it was past midnight. It rose out of the treetops like a rusted skeleton, all iron beams and missing pieces. The base was surrounded by overgrown brush, and the stairs were clearly not up to code. Some steps were completely missing, others bent like soda cans. I looked at Ben. "You're sure this thing's gonna hold us?" He grinned. "Only one way to find out." We climbed slowly, carefully, grabbing railings like scaling a jungle gym. A few steps crunched under our weight. I had to leap over one gap that made my stomach twist. But eventually, we reached the top. The platform was warped metal grating, bent in weird angles. The little hut at the top, probably where rangers used to sit, was still standing but smelled like mold and something worse. Maybe a raccoon lived there now. We didn't check. Instead, we rolled out sleeping bags on the open platform, cooked ramen, and stared at the stars. It actually felt kind of magical for a bit. No noise, no distractions, just the two of us and the sky. Then I heard it, a soft crunch down below. Not a squirrel, not a raccoon, something heavy. Ben's flashlight flicked off instantly. "Don't move," he whispered. We both froze. Step, pause, step, pause. It circled the tower once, then again, slow, deliberate, no talking, no rustling, like it was looking for something, just those footsteps, pacing. I didn't breathe. My heart hammered in my ears. I counted steps in my head. 12, 13, 14, then silence. I don't know how long we stayed like that, 10 minutes or an hour. Eventually, I started breathing again, told myself it was just some hunter or another hiker who saw our lights. At some point, I must have nodded off, but when I woke up, something felt off. Ben's sleeping bag was empty. Bivvy zipped open the way he left it. I sat up. Ben, no answer. I got up, crept to the platform's edge, shined my light downward. There was someone standing at the base, not Ben. The thing was tall, thin. The arms hung wrong, too long, like they didn't know where they were supposed to go. The head tilted, not like someone looking up, but like it was broken. The whole body looked distorted, stretched out. Then I heard Ben's voice. It came from the trees. "Josh, I need help." To clear, no emotion, like someone playing back a sound file. Then it said it again, same exact words, same exact tone. "Josh, I need help." I stumbled back. My hands were shaking. I didn't even realize I'd pulled my knife out. The figure below didn't move. Then it started climbing, not the stairs, the beams, hands grabbing iron supports, limbs bending in ways that didn't make sense. No sound, just motion. I turned, heart racing. The stairs behind me were gone, half collapsed. No escape that way. The thing was halfway up. Then I heard it again, "Josh," but this time, I knew it was Ben's real voice, real breath behind it. The thing stopped, then dropped, just let go like its strings were cut. I rushed to the edge. Nothing. It was gone. Seconds later, Ben crashed out of the trees below, face pale, flashlight jerking in his hand. "Go," he screamed. "We have to go." The stairs. I started sliding down, using the beams. I didn't think, grabbed the nearest support pole, swung out, and dropped, hit the dirt, and slid halfway down the slope before Ben caught me. We didn't speak, just ran, barreled through trees like animals, branches tearing at us. I don't know how long we ran, hours maybe. We made it back around dawn. When we reached the cabin, Ben slammed the door behind us and locked it. Only then did he talk. He said he got up to pee and saw something. At first he thought it was me, but it moved wrong, jerky, like it didn't know how limbs worked. Then it stepped behind a tree and vanished. Story 3. I was 17 the summer everything at home blew up. My parents were constantly at each other's throats. Didn't matter what it was. Money, dishes, how loud the TV was, who forgot to buy more toothpaste. Every little thing was a full-blown argument. I'd come home from school and just sit in the driveway sometimes, waiting for them to quiet down, but they never did. One night after a particularly brutal fight that ended with my dad throwing a chair, I texted my mum from my room, "I need to get away." She didn't even ask where, just said, "Okay, be safe." My Uncle Travis had this off-the-grid cabin out near Franklin, West Virginia, not even on GPS, middle of nowhere. I'd only been there once as a kid. I remembered it being boring but quiet. At that point, boring and quiet sounded like heaven. Travis wasn't the warm type. He picked me up from the bus station in silence, chewing sunflower seeds and spitting shells into an old Gatorade bottle. When we pulled up to the cabin, it looked smaller than I remembered. Wood siding gone gray, the screen door hanging loose, on one hinge, making a slapping sound every time the wind caught it. A porch swing with only one chain. Inside was just 2 rooms and a bathroom, a wood stove in the corner, a kitchenette that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the Clinton administration. The whole place smelled faintly of old coffee grounds and burnt wood. I noticed a dog, bowled by the sink, but there wasn't a dog. Had a mutt years ago, Travis said when he saw me looking. Died rules. Don't follow the carved trees. Don't stay out after dark. And don't go west. I waited for a punchline or a reason. Got neither. He turned around, lit a cigarette, and that was the end of the conversation. The next few days were just me walking. No cell service. Travis didn't own a TV or radio, so I explored. Woods were thick. Hills rolled into other hills until I couldn't tell direction. Sometimes I'd stop and just try to listen, but there weren't any real sounds. No birds, no squirrels, nothing rustling. It was like someone pressed mute, and I started noticing bones. First it was just little ones, a bird here, a rabbit there, then a raccoon with its rib cage showing. Always dry, always clean, like something picked them clean and arranged them just off the path. After a while, I stopped looking too closely, but the carvings, those messed with me. Random trees would have symbols cut deep into the bark, not initials or Tom plus Becky hearts. Weird stuff, overlapping triangles, spidery lines, circles inside circles. One had what looked like two stick figures holding hands, but their heads were X's. A few were surrounded by black handprints the size of a 5-year-old's, and the thing is, they moved. I'd see one on a tree during a hike, come back the next day, and it would be gone, or on a different tree entirely. I finally brought it up. What do the symbols mean? I asked over dinner of eggs and toast that Travis burned on purpose. He didn't look up, just muttered, "Don't touch, don't follow, don't ask again." That was the first full sentence I'd heard from him in days. One morning I woke up before the sun, just couldn't sleep. Figured I'd go farther than usual. Stuffed some jerky and a flashlight in my backpack and started down a narrow path I hadn't noticed before. It dipped between two trees that were completely dead, like they'd been burned from the inside out. The trail curved weirdly, like it was trying to lead me in a circle but never quite did. Then it opened into a clearing. Right in the middle was a ring of stones, not random rocks, placed evenly spaced, perfectly round, maybe 20 feet across. Inside the circle was nothing, no leaves, no grass, not even bugs, just hard-packed dirt. And in the center, a tree stump. It was pale, like it had just been cut, but it didn't match any trees around it. The cut was too clean. No bark, no jagged edges. It looked wrong, like it didn't belong there. I stepped a little closer, didn't go in. Then I saw the rope. It was hanging down from a high branch, old, frayed, thick, a noose. It wasn't swinging fast, just slightly, like it had been touched. Recently, I told myself the wind did it, but there was no breeze. I turned around, and someone was there. He was maybe 10 feet away. No shoes, skin like sun-dried beef, shirt stained dark at the collar and down the chest, ribs poking through like a Halloween prop. His eyes were the worst part, pale and unblinking, too wide. He wasn't breathing through his mouth. He was sniffing, inhales so deep and slow I could hear them rattle in his chest. His hair hung in greasy strips on both sides of his face, and his feet, they weren't on the moss. They were in it, like sunk deep, toes curled into the ground. All I managed was, "Sorry." I didn't shout, didn't run immediately, just apologized like I'd walked into the wrong bathroom. He lifted one hand and pointed at the stump. That's when I took off. I ran like I'd never run, smacked face first into branches, tore my palms on rocks. At one point, I slid down a hill and landed on my side so hard I thought I cracked a rib. Backpack ripped, jerky gone, flashlight somewhere behind me. I didn't care. I scrambled up and kept going. The woods felt different now, bigger. I couldn't find anything familiar. Trees leaned at strange angles, like they'd twisted while I wasn't looking. I'd hear birds, then silence. Water, then silence. Always just enough to make me second-guess what I heard. When I finally stumbled back into the clearing near the cabin, the sun was almost down. Shirt shredded, knees bleeding, dirt in my teeth. Travis was waiting on the porch with his shotgun, not aiming it, just holding it like he always did. He looked at me for a second and said, "You stepped into the wrong circle." I said, "How do you know?" He didn't answer. That night, we didn't speak. He sat out front. I sat on the couch. Around 1 a.m., I started hearing footsteps. Not close, just at the edge of the trees. Long, slow strides crunching dry leaves, snapping twigs like they were being broken on purpose. Then the voice came. "Mason, double quotes," it whispered. I stood up. It sounded exactly like my mum. Same tone she used when she couldn't find her keys. "Mason, help me, I'm lost." I walked toward the window. Travis reached in and grabbed my wrist hard, shook his head once, didn't say a word. "Please," the voice said. "Mason, I need you." It was my mum's voice, but drawn out like someone playing a recording through a broken speaker. I opened my mouth to say something. Travis clamped his hand over it. We sat there all night. The voice circled the cabin, switching sides like trying to find a way in. At dawn, it stopped. When we checked the ground, there were footprints. Bare feet, toes splayed wide. They circled the cabin, stopped right under my window, then vanished. No trail out. I packed that afternoon. Didn't say much. Neither did Travis. He drove me to the bus station. Right before I got out, he said, "You were lucky." Then he drove off. I never told my parents what really happened. Said I got homesick. They didn't ask for details. 10 years went by. I moved twice, got a decent job in Richmond. Life settled into something that felt normal. The cabin, the woods. They stayed in the back of my head like a dream you're not sure you actually had. Story 4. I was 23 the first time I tried solo camping in the Blue Ridge. I'd gone on plenty of weekend hikes before, mostly with friends, usually somewhere close to home, day trips or maybe a night out with a fire. Some beers, and too many marshmallows. But those were always half about the trail and half about hanging out. This time was different. I was coming off a rough breakup, had just quit a job I hated, and honestly, I felt stuck. I kept telling people I just needed a break, but I think I was trying to prove to myself I could handle being completely alone. For days, no reception, no distractions, just me, my gear, and whatever was out there. The spot I picked was outside a tiny place called Ledger's Gap. It barely shows up on the map, like someone typed it wrong and no one fixed it. I found it mentioned on a hiker's forum. Some old-timer said it was peaceful and never crowded. That was the whole appeal. I drove up with my car packed and ready, left my phone on airplane mode, told my sister where I was headed, brought a printed map from the ranger station just in case. No GPS, no social media, packed light, just the basics, tent, water filter, a few freeze-dried meals, my knife, a little first aid kit, and a paperback mystery novel collecting dust. When I stopped for gas just outside Ledger's Gap, I asked the clerk if the Firebrush Trail was still accessible. He didn't even look up from the counter, just nodded once and muttered, "Yeah, always open." No smile, no warning, not even a be careful. The vibe was off, but I chalked it up to small-town awkwardness, paid for water and drove on. The trailhead was basically a gravel patch off a bend in the road. A beat-up wooden post with a sun-faded sign read, "No maintenance beyond this point." No parking lot, no ranger kiosk, no other cars. Looked like the kind of place people forget exists. I locked my car, tightened pack straps, and stepped onto the trail. The first few miles were beautiful. The path wound between tall trees with mossy trunks and low shrubs rustling when I brushed them. Air smelled like dirt and old leaves. Occasionally, I'd hear a woodpecker or see a squirrel dart through undergrowth, but otherwise, it was silent. Peaceful, but kind of eerie too. By late afternoon, I'd hiked about 6 miles in and found a patch of flat ground beside a creek. Not an official campsite, but perfect. Soft soil, no rocks, a clear spot for my tent, a little slope nearby to sit and eat. I set up the tent, filtered creek water, boiled a pouch of chili over my tiny stove, and sat back on a log with boots off, watching the stream flow. That first night was completely uneventful. I stayed up reading by headlamp, then crawled into my sleeping bag and fell asleep to trickling water and leaves whispering above the tent door. The second morning, I decided to hike light. A rocky overlook marked on the map was about 2 miles further. Up the ridge, I left the tent and gear, just brought a small day pack with snacks, water, and my map. To be safe, I tore up an old red t-shirt into strips and tied one to a branch every 100 yards or so to mark my path. Nothing fancy, just quick little knots so I wouldn't get turned around. The hike up was uneventful. I didn't pass a single person. The trail narrowed and got steeper closer to the overlook, but eventually, I found the rock ledge. The view was stunning. layers of green stretching in every direction, treetops blending into one solid wall. I sat on a boulder, pulled out granola and jerky, and listened. No cars, no talking, no planes overhead, just wind, leaves, and my own chewing. Stayed maybe half an hour before heading back. It was around 2 o'clock when I got back to my camp. That's when I saw it. About 20 feet from my tent, tied to a branch at shoulder height, was a strip of red cloth. Same color, same fabric, but not one of mine. I walked up and immediately noticed the knot was different, tighter, more intentional. Mine were quick loops. This one looked practiced. The strip was also darker, like it had been wet or dragged through dirt. I stood there a long minute, staring, trying to convince myself I'd tied it and forgot, but that didn't make sense. I hadn't been near this part of camp during my hike. I'd tied the last marker way up the ridge. I checked all my original markers again, retraced the first part back toward the overlook. All mine were still there. This one didn't match the pattern. It hadn't been there that morning. I didn't eat dinner that night. Zipped myself inside the tent as soon as the sun dipped, knife within reach, and just lay there listening. Every rustle outside felt louder than it should. Every shift of wind made me flinch. But nothing came. Nothing touched the tent. I didn't sleep much. By morning, I'd made a decision. The ranger map mentioned a primitive shelter cabin about 8 miles deeper into the forest. I figured if someone was messing with me, they wouldn't expect me to head farther in. The cabin had 4 walls, maybe a lock, possibly an old ranger radio. I packed only what I needed and set out early. About 2 hours in, the forest started to feel different, not ominous exactly, just still, like everything had hit mute. The birds stopped. Even my own footsteps seemed quieter. That's when I heard it. Movement ahead, quick, light steps. Too soft for a deer, too smooth for a raccoon. I stopped, called out. Hello, nothing. The trail split about 50 yards ahead. Left climbed sharply up a ridge. Right dropped into a thicker part of the valley. I stood there, trying to decide which way the map wanted me to go. Then I saw it. On a branch just up the left path was another red strip of cloth. Same knot as the one near my tent. Same placement. I didn't hesitate. I turned right and kept moving. Didn't stop again. Didn't check the map. I just wanted walls around me. The shelter was barely standing. A single-room wooden shack with a dented tin roof and a crooked door that screamed when I opened it. Inside smelled like wood smoke and rodent droppings. An old shelf held a rusty can of beans, a broken broom, a pile of leaves in the corner, but it had a bolt on the door and a solid wall to lean against. I shut myself inside, lit a candle, sat with my back against the wall, knife in hand, didn't read, didn't eat, just listened. Sometime after midnight, I heard it. 2 slow knocks on the outer wall, not wind, not branches, knuckles. I held my breath. A few minutes later, the door creaked, just a little, enough to hear wood strain, like someone pressed weight against it, then let go. That was it. I waited for hours. Nothing else happened. When the sky started to lighten, I shoved everything in my pack and bolted. Didn't stop to lace boots properly. Didn't eat. Ran nearly 10 miles straight, barely looking at the trail when I reached the trailhead. My car was still there. I leaned against it, gasping, staring back at the trees like something might follow me out. As I pulled onto the road, I passed the old Ledger's Gap welcome sign nailed. Story 5. By October, I ended up in western North Carolina, rolling green hills and forest as far as I could see. I started in state parks, but once the weather cooled and weekend crowds thinned, I began slipping off the beaten paths. Fewer people meant more breathing room. One misty afternoon, I stopped at a lone gas station just a pump out by a highway curve, looking for tips on hidden trails. The clerk, a guy with a friendly half-smile, told me about an old place just off the Blue Ridge Parkway, he said. Not many folks go out there, in a way that suggested both caution and rural treasure. That was enough for me. I pulled into the trailhead late on a Friday, gravel, a sagging sign big enough to suggest maps, and just one other vehicle, a red Subaru with a cracked taillight and a dull "Rescued Dogs Don't Shop" sticker on the bumper. Dust coated the hood. It looked abandoned. I shrugged, parked nearby, and started loading my pack. The path was steep for the first mile or so, just enough to remind me of gravity. Then it rolled into winding switchbacks deep amid hickory and oak, underbrush tangled like old rope. With every step, the world grew quieter, like pressing a mute switch on life. Birdsong softened, wind turned respectful, even forest smells became subtle. No cars, no planes, just trees and me. I hiked until I found a flat spot by a trickling stream, perfect for camp. Air felt crisp, but not freezing. Made ramen on my little stove, stared up at stars that felt closer than usual, and felt that sweet hush of the woods wrap around me. Then came midnight. I snapped upright. No rustling, no one shouting my name. Just an instant jolt that dropped me into alert mode. Tent walls were still. I barely dared move. Then I heard it. Tentative steps, not like little critters. Heavy enough like a person crackling leaves 20 feet away. One deliberate step after another. Then pause, crackle, pause again. Silence. Maybe 5 minutes later, I cracked the tent open just enough to peek. Nothing moved. I could have sworn a shadow flickered, but maybe moonlight tricked me. Didn't smell anything wild. No growl or scuffing, just a slow, deliberate walk around my sight. Zipped back up, convinced myself it was a raccoon or maybe a bear being cautious. I've heard bears lumber around, grunt, sniff. This felt too light-footed, too human. Morning came with cold air in the tent. I moved quickly, packing with one hand, while the other held my coffee, half-cooked noodles sloshing in the pot. Didn't wait to cool, shoved it into my pack and headed deeper into the woods, aiming for quieter, farther from anyone else. It was later I found a mossy clearing with a forgotten fire ring. Stones so blackened they looked like relics swallowed by green. I felt a drop of relief, sat up, ate jerky from the bag crinkling in my lap, scribbled in my journal about how quiet out here is weird. Simple thoughts like writing to a friend who'd get it. Then the sun started to dip. I walked 20 feet out from the clearing just to gather dead branches for a fire. That's when I froze. Between the trees someone was standing there. No footsteps, no snapbrush signal. They were just there, upright, watching, tall enough to be an adult man. I stopped breathing. My mouth got dry. Thought maybe they were lost, looking for a campsite. Called out, "Hey, got nothing?" They barely moved when I took a step back. Just a tiny shift, like shifting weight. No wave, no nothing, just a still human shape. So I turned, heart hammering, walked straight back, not quickly, but with purpose. I packed up that camp by flashlight, knife in hand, headlamp by my pillow. Don't think I slept more than scattered minutes. Every snap of twig or gust of leaf had me sitting upright. By dawn, I stuffed everything into my pack. No time for coffee or sitting, and retraced my steps fast. The trail felt off now. Shadows looked wrong. Rocks, I remembered, looked gone. Kept checking over my shoulder. 2 miles from the parking area, I stopped. The Subaru was there, but not where I left it. It was off the trail, stationary, tucked between 2 tree trunks like someone drove it in and abandoned it. Who'd dusted with pine needles. More dust than when I left. A window cracked open. I walked all the way around. No footprints heading into or out of the woods. No campsite. The interior was empty. No stove, no sleeping pads, no gear. Just a gray air freshener hanging low and a dark, dried smear on the backseat fabric. My chest tightened. I swung around and took off down the trail, breathing hard, pumping arms. Didn't stop until I hit the lot. My van was exactly where I left. It doors locked, no weirdness. But that suffocating feeling hadn't lifted. I revved the engine, drove out without thinking where. Couple hours later, ended up in a cheap motel. Fluorescent lights, Front desk behind glass. Gave a fake name, paid cash, checked in. Room smelled like cheap cleanser, but I didn't care. Checked the lock, shoved a chair under the doorknob, curled up with my knife on the nightstand. Don't know what woke me somewhere around 3 a.m., but there was a slow dragging scratch outside. Concrete or asphalt, like boots, like someone pacing. Sat up, ears ringing, crawled across the bed to the peephole. A man stood there facing away, staring at the tree line behind the motel. Tall, grey hoodie drenched at the bottom, boots heavy looking, caked knee-deep in mud. No bag, no car, no flashlight. He didn't shift for 10 minutes, just watched. Then, he turned and walked into darkness. My heart thudded. I sat on the floor with the knife in my lap. Didn't sleep again. By sunrise, I was gone. Didn't even unlock the door. Drove until headlights, billboards, and buzz replaced silence. Until cell phone bars popped up. Until I didn't feel followed, even though I know I probably was. Never went back. Never asked about that Subaru. Story 6. I used to go hiking almost every other weekend. There's something peaceful about being alone in the woods. No buzzy notifications, no cars, no people asking for directions or small talk. The trails behind Bell Ridge Hollow, West Virginia, felt like my secret edge of the world, quiet, wild, tiny. I'd park the car by an old cattle gate, think sagging metal chain dangling, slap on my pack, and climb. That day started like any other. Cool, just enough breeze to take the itch off a spring morning. After about 2 hours, the logging road split into a fork. It looked deliberate, almost groomed. I followed the right side. That's when I saw it. A cairn, waist-high, neat stones stacked with almost OCD precision. On top, in the center, was a shard of red glass lying flat like an eye staring up at me. I walked circles around it, peering, turning it over in my head. Made no sense. No trail, marker, no sign. Just that strange glass, glaring, almost angry. Whatever, I thought. Keep moving. 30 minutes later, I hit another one. Another identical cairn, except this time, sap was dripping down one side like syrup, slow and glistening. It looked like it was crying. That image almost stuck me in place. I just stared, then told myself, sap gunk, up rocks, nothing supernatural here. Branches rustled overhead. I scanned trees, half expecting something to appear, but nothing. Found a flat spot in a dry stream bed and sat. Gravel poked through my shorts, but it was flat and easy. Broke a granola bar, first bits of oats, honey, the works. Chewed on beef jerky. Looked down at my GPS watch. It was frozen. Said I was back near the road from 30 minutes ago. Full bars. No glitch reason. On purpose. Rebooted it. It sputtered back to life, pinning me living in the present again. But after that, the forest felt sharper. Edges more defined. Every twig snap sounded louder. Branches creaked even without wind. Zipped my jacket up and walked faster, faster. Then I meant to dot it. Didn't take long to find cairn number 3. No red glass this time. Instead, someone had tied a strip of old flannel around the base rock. Faded red and blue pattern. Looked like shirts miners wore back in the 1930s. I remember seeing photos in the Bell Ridge Museum. I crouched to touch it. Just then, snap. A branch cracked loud behind me like a gunshot. Spun around. Nothing, could feel my heart slamming. Didn't need my watch. It was close to 2:15 p.m. That dead zone of afternoon when the sun feels heavy. Stuffed my tracker into my pocket and walked on. Plan was to hit that ridge and head back, but just past a clump of old oaks. The ground dropped out. I slipped into a hollow that didn't exist on my map. Felt wet, heavy, like rain soaked everything there, though the rest of the trail was dry. Felt trapped, unnaturally moved. I picked my way down using deer trails, stealthy by design. Silent, instinctual, but deeper I went. Weirder it got. Moss clung to rocks in thick mats. Some stones looked carved, Angles so sharp you'd think a sculptor worked on them. That's when I saw it. A cabin. I'd been in old cabins before, but this one was different. Roof coated in dark soot like it smoked a campfire for decades. Windows so filthy they looked like mirrors at midnight. No glass, just grime, no smoke. From a chimney, nothing but the footprints stopped me. One pair clear deep. You could almost see the arch imprint. Someone had been there recently. I wish I'd turned around then, but I didn't. I crept to the back. Behind it, someone had put up crosses in a muddy patch, 7, 9, hard to count. Each was just sharp, splintery wood with a little pile of stones on top. Sloppy sap drips down some, still wet, and the red glass. It was buried into the dirt around each cross. Looked ceremonial, like someone planted it there. Arranged. I wished I could unsee it. It got worse. A dog. At least I thought it was a dog at first. Looked like a sculpture carved from a tree stump, but I swear it moved. Took a step, raised its head. Its legs were too skinny, too long, like a dog. Drawn by someone who'd never seen one, muzzle stiff and unblinking. It stared at me. I froze. My blood pounded. I swear it tilted its head as though curious. Then it turned and just disappeared into the trees. No bark, no rustle, just gone. I turned and ran. Every direction looked wrong. Trees and rocks blurred. Retraced steps, or tried. Then I saw it. The first cairn, again, same spot, but the top rock was gone. In its place was a circle of teeth. Human teeth, arranged like a wreath, some big, some small. Pretty, polished, like scrubbed clean. I closed my eyes and puked in the leaves. Screamed into the woods. Rain, no, just my own voice. Then I ran harder. My GPS was dead again. Dug my phone out, tried calling for help. It died after one ring, no signal, didn't care. Just ran downhill until lungs burned, legs burned. Didn't stop until I reached the logging gate. A stump sat nearby. On it, a pair of boots. My boots. Not mine, but identical. Shiny, empty, with a puddle of water inside each one. Clean water. I didn't get it. There was something else, though. A Polaroid half stuck in the left boot. Pulled it out slowly. My hand shook so bad I folded the boot over. Spilled water out to steady myself. The photo was me, eating lunch in that stream bed. From behind. Exactly where I'd been hours ago. No shutter noise, no trail of sound. Just whoever or whatever had watched me. I dropped the photo and ran. My car was at the gate when I got there. Opened the door, jumped in. Felt like I should still be hiking. Grabbed keys, missed the ignition twice before it caught. Didn't check mirrors. Slammed into gear and bolted down the gravel road. Loose stones kicking up like rain behind me. 10 miles later, I pulled into a roadside diner. Wood paneling inside, dusty booths, single bulb lights hanging low. Sat and stared at the coffee they brought. Hands shook the mug so it clanked the saucer. The waitress wrote on a pad with a pen that squeaked. Asked if I was okay. I gurgled, "I need a ride," and didn't say another word. Not about the teeth, not about the cabin. Not about that dog. That night I scrubbed everything. Boots, pack, clothes until washer and dryer sounded ready to explode. Double-checked every lock, left lights on all night, kept blinds shut. Couldn't sleep, dozed watching my front door, waiting for proof I judged wrong, waiting for someone or something to peek through darkness. 2 days later, the mailbox photo showed up. Same stream bed shot. Closer frame, filled with me. My face, my shirt, bag, like they were aimed in. Wasn't background noise or random point and shoot. It was deliberate and posed. Didn't open it, just stared. That was the last straw. Packed a box that night. 2 weeks later, I sold Belridge Hollow and moved on. Now I only hike marked trails, parks with other people. If I come across a cairn that isn't on a trail sign, I leave. Story 7. I stumbled across a weird post on an old hiking forum, buried deep in a thread about abandoned trails. No capitalization, just a long, messy rant about a cave system somewhere near the Tennessee-North Carolina border. It didn't give coordinates or anything useful, just blurry photos of a rusty chain-link fence half hidden in vines on a ridge behind what the poster claimed was an old ranger station. But it was the last line that stuck with me. Turn around if you hear clicking, don't. Keep going. I'm serious. That sentence crawled into my brain and stayed. At first, I saved the post just because it was bizarre, but over weeks I found myself coming back, wondering if maybe, just maybe, it was real. By the time June rolled around, I had a week off work and zero plans. Curiosity had sunk its teeth in, so I packed my gear, headlamp, backup flashlight, knife, string, snacks, a bivy sack, and made the 6-hour drive into the mountains. I camped out near a fire road just off-grid enough that my phone turned into a paperweight. No signal, no maps, just me and the trees. Next morning, I followed the directions as best I could using landmarks mentioned in the post. First came to birch trees split at the base like a wishbone, then a fork in the creek. I took the left path. Finally, a long curve in the slope shaped like a horseshoe that led me right to it. The ranger station looked half swallowed by forest, roof collapsed, door hanging on by a splinter, windows shattered. A wooden sign leaned against the wall. Crow Hill Ranger Outpost. I hadn't seen it on any maps. Behind the building, past mossy boulders, I found the fence. Looked exactly like the photo. Old, tangled in vines. Bent outward at the bottom where something or someone had slipped through. So I did the same. I followed what barely qualified as a trail, just a shallow line, through undergrowth. The climb took about 40 minutes. No birds, no bugs. Only sound was crunching leaves under boots and my own breathing. Felt like the forest hit mute. Eventually, the ridge narrowed, and I spotted it. A crack in the rock on the north slope didn't look like much, just a jagged slit in limestone. Turned sideways and squeezed through, backpack catching on edges. Inside it got cold fast, air damp, stale, thick enough I could almost taste minerals. Turned on my headlamp, tied one end of my spool of string to a rock near the entrance. Standard cave exploration move. The passage twisted downward and deeper. After a few turns, daylight disappeared completely. After about 20 minutes of careful walking, I came into a wider chamber. My light hit the walls, and I stopped. Carvings everywhere. Spirals, stick figures, deep gouges. Some looked like people but wrong arms too long. Heads missing or shaped like circles. One figure had hands raised toward another smaller one. Didn't look like art. Looked like someone trying to record something. Pulled out my phone to snap a picture. Lifted it and my headlamp flickered. Tapped the side. The light steadied. Turned to leave. Then I heard it. Just one sharp tap echoing faintly behind me. Click, click, click. Not water, not random. A rhythm to it. Almost like it meant something. Froze for maybe 3 seconds. Then slowly started backing toward the entrance. String still in hand. Turned my flashlight toward the tunnel behind me. And then the string jerked hard, like someone yanked it from the other end. I let go immediately. The clicking stopped. Waited, breathing hard, straining to hear. For a moment, nothing. Then I caught movement. Low to the ground. Fast, just a glimpse. Pale skin, long fingers disappearing around a corner. That was enough. I turned and ran. No thought, just instinct. Light swung wildly, bouncing off walls. Every slope felt steeper, every turn tighter. Slipped, landed hard on my side, slid down a rocky incline. Flashlight flew out of my hand and skittered away. Crawled over, clicked it on again. Hands shaking. I was in a smaller chamber. No exit in sight. Then the clicking started again. Closer. This time, stood up, backed against the wall, listening to it echo. Click, click, and then it stepped in. Crawling, it moved on all fours. Limbs bent in ways that didn't make sense, like joints pointed wrong. Skin pale and stretched thin over bone. No eyes, no nose, no face at all. Just smooth skin with a thin slit where a mouth might have been. It held 2 small black stones in its hands. Click, click, click. Then it stopped moving, tilted its head, dropped the stones, and screamed. Not with its mouth, the sound came from everywhere, as if the cave itself was screaming a horrible metallic screech, rattling my bones. My flashlight went out. I didn't wait to think. Dropped it and ran, arms outstretched, crashing into rock, clawing through tight gaps, scrambling up slopes, palms shredded, knees bruised. Didn't care, just kept moving. After what felt like forever, saw a faint sliver of daylight up ahead, forced through a crack in the rock, fell out onto the ridge. Didn't stop running until I reached the fire road, collapsed next to my car, lay there for an hour just listening, waiting, eventually drove home, but when I tried to find that post again, it was gone, deleted, no trace. The ranger station doesn't show up in any official records. Story 8. Last October, I agreed to house visit for my cousin Jason while he and his girlfriend took a 2-week hiking trip to Colorado. They'd planned it for months. When their original sitter bailed, he asked if I could help, said I could use the change of scenery. At the time, I was 27, out of work, back living in my parents' basement, not exactly thriving. So spending a couple weeks in a quiet cabin, no obligations, just me and his dogs, sounded like a break I desperately needed. Jason and Kayla lived way out in the Blue Ridge stretch of the Appalachians near a town called Clarksville, one of those places that doesn't show up unless you know it exists. Their cabin sat about 20 minutes outside town, tucked back behind switchbacks, one gravel road, and a million trees. The kind of place that disappears off the map once your signal drops, which it did halfway there. When I pulled in, Jason was already waiting out front with Sophie and Tank, his 2 dogs. Sophie was a lazy old golden retriever who looked like she'd seen better years. Tank, younger, a husky mix with way too much energy and a stare that made you feel judged. Jason gave me a paper with important stuff, door codes, Wi-Fi password, backup instructions. Right before leaving, he pointed around the cabin side and said, "If the power goes out, which it does sometimes, the breaker's in the basement. You'll have to get to it through the storm doors around back." "Wait," I said. "I thought this place was on a slab." He gave me a weird look, like I asked if the sky was blue. "Nah, it's dug in, but don't hang out down there. Foundation's old. It gets damp. Just flip the breaker and come back up." Then, walking to the car, he turned back. "Oh, and if you go walking, stay on the road. Don't go into the woods. Some folks around here don't like it when people wander." I assumed he meant hunters or property lines. The first few days were great, peaceful. Woke up late, fed the dogs, made pasta, read books untouched in years. Cabin was cozy, a little musty but not gross. More like it had stories untold. Huge windows faced the woods. Daytime sunlight cut through trees, painting walls in slow-moving stripes. No noise out there though, no birds, no crickets, just wind and creaks from the house. At night, the silence hit different. Not just quiet, total silence. I'd sit sometimes and snap fingers just to make a sound. Even the dogs didn't bark. They'd lie there, ears twitching, like listening for something I couldn't hear. On the 4th night, halfway through an old movie, the lights cut out, no flickering, just one soft click, like someone flicked a switch in another room. Everything went black. Waited a minute, thinking it might come back. Nothing. Grabbed the kitchen flashlight, pulled on boots, headed out the back. The storm doors were heavier than they looked. Metal, thick hinges groaning when pulled open. Stone steps going down were slick with moss and leaves. Held the flashlight low, watched footing. Halfway down, something crunched under my boot. Paused, aimed light down. A tiny, dry-looking bone. Knelt, pushed leaves aside. Found more, little vertebrae. Ribs, maybe a jaw. Picked completely clean. The breaker box looked fine. Flipped the main off. Then on, nothing happened. Stood there a second, deciding if I'd done it wrong, when the dogs exploded into barking. Not just noise. Full-blown defense mode. Tank especially, his barks echoing through the cabin like ready to rip something apart, bolted up the steps, nearly slipping at the top, rushed back inside. Both dogs were at the sliding glass door, pressed against it, fur bristled, teeth out. Tank let out a low rumbling growl. Sophie stood frozen beside him, ears flat, aimed to the flashlight through the glass, froze. There were 2 handprints. Not smears, actual handprints. Perfect greasy outlines pressed against the outside of the door. Low to the ground, kid-sized, no thumbs, just 4 long fingers on each hand. Stepped back, stomach tight, heart thumping in ears. Tank growled again, deeper, like wanting to leap through. Cracked the door open an inch. Hey, who's out there? Nothing, just trees and dark. Stepped onto the porch, swept light left, then right. It flickered, smacked it against my palm. Steadied. Still nothing. Went back inside. Locked the door. That night, didn't sleep. Dragged a chair into the hallway. Sat facing the back door, kitchen knife in lap, just waiting. By morning, the handprints were gone. And I don't mean faded. Gone. Glass, spotless, like someone wiped them away with a microfiber cloth. Called Jason. Told him everything. Pause. Then, he said, sometimes locals mess with people. It's nothing. If they meant harm, they'd have done it already. Said it to flat, like reciting something. That night kept lights off. Just me. Flashlight. Thermos of tea. Around 11:30. Heard tapping light, random thumps on the roof. Not like rain. More like pebbles tossed from different angles. Stepped outside, aimed light up, caught something moving just for a second. Small and quick, pulling back over the roof edge. Hello. I called, then I heard it, giving a whisper, high-pitched, like a kid testing the sound. Damien, long and soft, like it didn't know what the word meant. Backed into the house, slammed the door, locked it, sat down in the hallway again. Dogs didn't bark this time, just WHINED. Next morning, climbed up to check the roof. More handprints, same size, 4 fingers, no thumbs. That was it for me. Packed everything, tossed in dog food, grabbed a bag, loaded dogs into Jason's truck, walking back to the kitchen for my charger when Tank growled. Stood stiff in front of the pantry, baring teeth. Sophie crawled under the table, wouldn't come out, tapped the wall behind the pantry. Hollow crouched down, spotted something unnoticed. A small crawl space hatch beneath the bottom shelf. Moved the shelf aside, opened it. Flashlight barely reached the far end, but what I saw made my skin crawl. Hundreds of scratches, thin, shallow grooves cut into floorboards like tiny fingers had been dragging across them over and over. Looked chewed up. Shut it, called Jason. I'm leaving. Something's wrong here. He didn't argue. Can you check the far corner of the crawl space before you go? I left some traps there last winter. No, I told him. I'm not opening that thing again. He didn't press, didn't go home that night. Drove straight to a motel off the highway, 20 miles out. Slept with dogs on the bed, chair wedged under the doorknob. Story 9. I'm Jamie. I was 24 when I did my first solo hike through the Blue Hollow Range, just up near the Tennessee-Georgia border. It wasn't some dramatic decision or personal journey. I wasn't chasing inner peace or running from demons. I'd just gotten laid off from a dull office job where the highlight was watching the coffee machine clog, and I didn't feel like answering questions or pretending I was okay. So I packed a bag and left town, brought enough food for a few days. A tent, one of those burner phones from gas stations, a basic GPS that looked pawnshop worthy, and an old paper map with faded trails printed off a hiking forum. No cell signal out there, which honestly felt like a plus. First night was fine, peaceful. Set up near a stream with space to hang my hammock between 2 trees. Cooked sad-looking ramen on my little stove. Listened to frogs making weird clicking noises while staring at water. A few distant cracks from woods, twigs snapping, something shifting in underbrush. Normal out there. It didn't bother me. Felt like the first time I'd heard silence that wasn't empty. Next morning, started hiking again. Maybe 6 miles in, I saw an old half-hidden path veering left, mostly buried in undergrowth, but walkable. Don't know what made me turn. Boredom, maybe curiosity. Felt like a decision made without thinking, like taking the long way home. The path curled down into thicker forest, where trees packed tight, light barely made it through. No more trail markers. Air felt still, like nothing moved through in a while. Then I saw it, a collapsed structure just off the side, cabin-shaped but barely holding together. Looked decades old, one whole side sunk into ground. Roof collapsed in like a crushed box, maybe 10 by 10 feet. No doors, just a hole where one probably was. Windows empty, jagged edges where frames rotted. Inside, an ancient rusted stove tipped on its side. Lying next to it, half buried in dirt, a Polaroid. Wiped it off, looked closer. A photo of a man, shirtless, standing in front of that exact cabin. Same angle, same crooked frame visible. Photo faded, especially edges, but his face dead center sharp. Eyes didn't seem to focus on anything. No expression, blank stare like he didn't know the picture was taken. Turned it over, no date, no name, blank. Felt uneasy, not terrified, just unsettled, like stumbling into something private. Didn't step inside, took a picture of the cabin with my phone, stuck the Polaroid in pocket, kept walking. Around 4 p.m., found a decent camp spot uphill from the cabin, maybe 50 or 60 yards away. Picked it specifically because trees blocked the view of where I'd come from. Remembered thinking, if I can't see it, it can't see me. That night, trouble falling asleep, not because of noises, there weren't any, but because of how quiet it was. No crickets, no wind, just deep forest silence making you feel like the last person on earth. Sometime after 2 a.m., woke up suddenly, shot awake like hearing something but couldn't remember what. Lay there in hammock, totally still. That's when I noticed it was moving, not swaying gently from breeze. Felt like someone walked past and pushed it once, just enough to make it swing slightly and stop. Didn't move. Reached over, grabbed flashlight, slowly flicked it on. Nothing, no movement, no sound. After maybe 30 seconds, heard it. Branches, cracking somewhere downhill. Not close, not far. Another crack. Silence. Sat up. Whispered, "Hello." No response. Then heard it. A short cough. Dry like clearing throat, but trying not to draw attention. Came from direction of the cabin. Stayed frozen until sky started getting light. Didn't sleep another second. When I finally got up, scanned the area, that's when I saw it. A footprint in dirt, maybe 4 feet from where I'd slept. Barefoot, big wide toes. No sign of shoes or tread. Just one clean print, like whoever stood there a while before walking off didn't even eat. Packed in. Silence. Started following map back toward planned trail loop. After a couple miles, noticed forest felt off. No birds. No buzzing insects. Not even breeze in trees. Just me and footsteps. That's when I started seeing carvings first. Just lines, deep vertical slashes in bark. Then patterns got more specific. A spiral inside a square, a cross bent at weird angles, almost like symbols. Past maybe 7 or 8 trees with different carvings. Looked too deliberate for graffiti. Too old for a recent hiker's prank. Then saw the face carved into a big oak trunk. Long oval eyes, a stretched mouth turned down. Not messy. Detail enough like someone spent time on it that made it worse. Pulled out phone to take a photo. That's when I saw him, behind the next tree, just standing there, still as a statue. Shirtless, skin pale like wax, partially hidden by trunk, but I could see his face. Didn't blink, didn't flinch, just stared right at me like he'd been waiting. Don't remember turning round, just know. I ran full speed, no idea where, pure panic, ducking behind a massive fallen log, crouched down, waited. No sounds, no running footsteps, just quiet. After maybe 15 minutes, got moving again, didn't go back toward trail. Started cutting west, using compass, hoping to find a road or anything man-made. Around noon, found a clearing and another cabin. This one different, newer roof, solid, a thin stream of smoke rising from something behind it. Animal hides hung from a line out front. Tools scattered across a wooden table. Don't know why I got closer, but I did. Moved real slow, staying in trees, then caught the smell, burned meat. Thick, greasy, clinging to back of throat. A metal drum near porch. Smoke rolled from under lid. Crept up, peeked inside. Bones. Big, wrong-shaped, not deer or bear. Something about structure made stomach twist. Backed up fast, nearly tripped over a root. That's when heard cabin door creak open. Didn't wait to see who stepped out. Ran so hard couldn't feel feet. Crossed a dry creek bed, clawed up a slope using tree roots and rocks. Didn't stop until hitting top ridge and seeing nothing behind me. Still silent, still wrong. Kept walking until night fell again. That's when spotted the hunting stand nailed into a tree. High, maybe 30 feet up. Didn't care, climbed faster than thought possible. Platform barely big enough to sit on, but huddled there, wrapped coat around me. Waited around midnight, heard it. Footsteps, slow, one step at a time through leaves. Getting closer than a voice. Flat calm, like reading a name off a list. Jamie. Skin went ice cold. Then again, Jamie. Then heard ladder creak. Step by step, something was climbing. Gripped knife. Hands shook so hard, barely hold it. When figure reached top, didn't wait to see face. Swung with my foot hard. Boot hit square in chest. He fell backward. Heard impact landing, then nothing. Jumped off stand. Back, ankle twisted, bad landing. Pain, sharp, immediate. Didn't stop. Crawled. Then limped through woods for hours. No direction, just moving. Eventually saw headlights. A truck coming. Slowed down a dirt road. Stepped right into path. Driver slammed brakes. Jumped out yelling. Collapsed by front bumper. He asked if someone was chasing me. Just nodded. Didn't say word about photo. Next, morning burned the Polaroid. Didn't even look at it again.